The New Year's Eve promised to be magical, but beneath the clinking glasses and festive lights, a meticulously planned retribution was brewing. While everyone else prepared to make wishes at the stroke of midnight, a young woman was orchestrating entirely different surprises for her family. "Happy New Year, mother-in-law. Here is your present, an eviction notice." These words landed like a thunderclap. "And for you, my darling, divorce papers." Greetings, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. I'm delighted to present a compelling new story for your enjoyment. Please listen well. Kira first laid eyes on her husband's apartment a fortnight after their wedding. Prior to that, they had been renting a studio apartment on the outskirts, as Artem had claimed living with his mother was unbearable. Despotic, perpetually dissatisfied, he'd said. Kira nodded along, believing him, and rejoiced that at least in this regard they had lucked out. A fresh start, free from parental oversight. However, by the end of their first month of married life, their funds dwindled. Artem worked as a construction company manager, his income fluctuating unpredictably, between $30,000 and $50,000, depending on project closures. Kira, a bookkeeper at a small firm, earned $45,000. The studio rental consumed $28,000. When the second month's rent was due, Artem sighed deeply. "Perhaps we could stay with my mother after all, just temporarily until we save up for our own place." Kira gritted her teeth. She knew that temporarily rarely meant just that in such situations. But they had no alternative. Continuing to save for rent would mean accumulating debt. The apartment turned out to be a 3-bedroom unit in an old brick building, not far from the city center. It boasted bright rooms, high ceilings, and parquet flooring. Her mother-in-law, Zhana Borisovna, greeted them at the door with a strained smile. Tall and gaunt with short steel-colored hair, she wore a heavy chain around her neck and 3 gemstone rings on her fingers. Her attire was a loungewear set that, as Kira would later realize, cost more than her monthly salary. "Well, hello, lovebirds," Zhana Borisovna declared. "Come in, make yourselves at home. Artem, you remember your room, don't you? That's where you'll be." Kira had anticipated something worse, but the first week passed relatively peacefully. Zhana Borisovna, employed by the tax office, returned late, had dinner, and retreated to her bedroom. They rarely crossed paths in the mornings. Artem left early, Kira a little later. Her mother-in-law was always the last to rise. The troubles began in the second week when Kira decided to prepare dinner. She bought groceries for a feast, making a roast, a salad, and baking a charlotte. Zhana Borisovna arrived, surveyed the table, and pursed her lips. "You're quite the homemaker," she remarked. "Just try to give me a heads up next time you plan to cook. I bought a chicken, and now I don't know what to do with it." Kira offered a hesitant smile. "I simply wanted to surprise you." "Surprises are nice, but I'm accustomed to managing my own kitchen. I do apologize, dear, but every hostess has her own rules." After dinner, Zhana Borisovna conspicuously washed all the dishes herself, clattering plates as she put them away. Sighing, Kira retreated to their room, feeling a knot of resentment tightening within her. "Don't pay her any mind," Artem mumbled, scrolling on his phone on the sofa. "She's always like this. She'll get used to it." But Zhana Borisovna did not get used to it. She began finding fault with everything. The way Kira hung her towel in the bathroom, the perceived excessive duration of her showers. The fact that the light in their room remained on late into the evening. Electricity is quite expensive these days, you know. The shoes left in the hallway, the shampoo with its overly strong scent. Artem waved her concerns away. "Mom, please, enough. Kira isn't a guest here. She lives with us." "Precisely, she lives here," Zhana Borisovna retorted, "and she could at least show some gratitude. Or do you think it's acceptable, just to move into someone else's apartment like this?" "Whose apartment is it? I'm registered here too." "Registered, indeed," her mother nodded coolly. "But I am the owner, and I'm reminding you of this for a reason." Kira tried to stay out of these disputes. She cooked quietly in the kitchen, cleaned diligently, wiping everything to a shine. But it was never enough. Zhana Borisovna seemed to actively seek out reasons for her displeasure. One day, she erupted in an argument because Kira had washed her personal laundry along with the towels. "We don't do that in our family. Laundry is washed separately." "All right," Kira replied softly. "I won't do it again." "That's good. One needs to understand who's in charge from the outset." Artem remained silent, and then the financial entanglement began. Zhana Borisovna casually announced at breakfast that since 3 people were now living in the apartment, the utility bills had increased, and it would be only fair for the young couple to contribute. "How much?" Kira inquired. 10,000 from each of you." Kira was taken aback. Utility costs for a 3-bedroom apartment, even in winter, rarely exceeded 8,000. Where did 20,000 come from? "Mom, that's too much," Artem started, but Zhana Borisovna cut him off. "I've also included internet, television, intercom, plus the building's repair fund, and water and electricity. If you don't like it, find somewhere else to rent." They paid. After this, Kira was left with 20,000. A week later, her mother-in-law asked for another 5, ostensibly to call a plumber because the faucet in the bathroom was leaking. "This is because of you," she said meaningfully. "You twist it too tightly." Kira paid again, although they ended up fixing the faucet themselves, and Artem spent 300 rubles on parts. Zhana Borisovna had a penchant for shifting expenses. She'd buy groceries and then loudly calculate in the kitchen how much of everything had been consumed, hinting that compensation would be appreciated. Kira began buying food separately and hiding it in her room, but this also displeased her mother-in-law. "Why are you scurrying around with your bags like a mouse? Are we strangers here?" "I just don't want to burden you," Kira replied, a lump forming in her throat. "Oh, you don't want to, but my refrigerator, my stove, my dishes, and you are like a tenant." Artem said nothing. He'd come home from work exhausted, collapse on the sofa, and watch TV shows. Kira tried to talk to him, but he'd dismiss her. "Later, Kira. I'm tired." She endured. She thought just a little longer, another couple of months, and they would save enough to rent. But in November, Artem's salary was delayed, and then delayed again. "The project fell through," he explained. Kira believed him, though there was no way to verify it. All their money went towards utilities, food, and gas. Her 45,000 vanished within 2 weeks, and Zhana Borisovna continued to exert pressure. She began complaining about her health and hinting that it would be nice for the young couple to buy her medication. Kira bought it. Her mother-in-law asked her to pick up groceries from the market. "I don't have time, and you're home on weekends." Kira brought them. Once, Zhana Borisovna demanded that Kira pay for her taxi to the clinic, claiming her back hurt and she couldn't endure the bumpy bus ride. "Mom, you have your car," Artem said. "It's being repaired." His mother cut him off curtly. The car was parked in the yard. By mid-December, Kira realized she couldn't take it anymore. She started looking for alternatives. She rented a room on a distant outskirts for 12,000 a month, deciding she would move out alone. Let Artem stay with his mother if it suited him so much. But when she hinted at this, he suddenly seemed frightened. "Kira, are you serious? We're a family." "What family, Artem? You don't even defend me." "I try, but she's my mother. I can't kick her out." "Can you kick me out?" He remained silent. And in that silence, Kira understood the crucial point. He would always choose his mother because it was easier. That same evening, she went for a walk and coincidentally met her neighbor from their floor, an elderly woman named Clara Mikhailovna. They got talking. The neighbor sighed. "I feel so sorry for you, dear. Zhana is quite something. She drove out Artem's first wife and the second one, too. You're the third, it seems." Kira was stunned. "The second one? What second one?" Clara Mikhailovna chuckled. "Oh, he didn't tell you. Of course not. Why would he? Artem was married twice before. The first time at 23. They lasted 6 months. The second wife left after a year. Both of them fled from Jana. She put so much pressure on them that the girls couldn't bear it, and Artem never intervened. "He's a mama's boy, dear. You should leave too before it's too late." Kira returned home and lay on her bed. Artem was asleep. She stared at the ceiling and thought, why does she put up with it? For what? The next day, she took a day off and went to visit her grandmother. Her grandmother lived in a suburb in a small private house. The grandmother was strict but fair. Kira told her everything. Her grandmother listened silently, then stood up and took an old folder from the sideboard. "Your grandfather left me this house, but I want it to go to you. I've wanted to arrange this for a while, but I never got around to it. Now is the perfect time." "Grandmother, what are you saying?" Kira couldn't comprehend. "I'm saying this house is yours. I'm gifting it to you. We'll go to a notary today and finalize everything properly. Then you can decide what to do with it. Sell it and start a new life, or move in here, or rent it out. But you'll have a foundation so no one can ever kick you out of someone else's apartment again." Kira burst into tears. She hugged her grandmother tightly, unable to let go. They went to the notary that very day. The gift deed process took a week. They needed to obtain the grandmother's consent at the notary's office, order a technical plan, and submit the documents to the Ratsregister. The house was old but sturdy. The plot was 600 square meters. Its market value was around 3 million rubles. For Kira, it was astronomical wealth. But she had no intention of selling. She decided to rent out the house. She found a couple looking for housing outside the city and agreed on 25,000 rubles a month. It was a stroke of luck. In parallel, Kira began saving. She stopped giving Jana Borisovna even a single kopeck. When her mother-in-law once again asked for money for medication, Kira coolly replied, "I don't have any." "How can you not have any? You're working." "I am working, but my money is my business." Jana Borisovna turned red. "Oh, so that's how you're speaking. Artem, are you hearing this?" Artem remained silent, engrossed in his phone. Kira went to her room and locked the door. That evening, she finally made the decision to leave. But not just leave. She wanted them to remember. The preparation took 3 weeks. Kira rented a tiny studio for 15,000 rubles, finding the option through acquaintances. She packed her belongings piece by piece, taking things out of the apartment gradually to avoid suspicion. She found a lawyer, consulted about divorce, and learned that if there were no jointly acquired assets or children, the court date would be set 1 month after filing the application, and she would receive her divorce certificate another month later. Kira also discovered something interesting. One day, while rummaging through the apartment documents, which Jana Borisovna kept in an old dresser in the living room, she found out that the apartment was registered in Artyom's name. The privatization had occurred 10 years prior, and he was listed as the sole owner. Jana Borisovna was registered there, but she had no ownership rights. Kira photographed the documents and showed them to Artem that evening. "Did you know?" He nodded guiltily. "I knew, but Mom always said it was her apartment, and I didn't argue. Well, it's just awkward." "Awkward," Kira repeated in an icy tone. "And it was convenient for me to tolerate her rudeness." "Kira, let's not," he agreed, and she left the room. At the end of December, Artem suddenly announced he had quit his job. He claimed he was tired, wanted a break, and would find something better after the new year. "You quit?" Kira couldn't believe it. "We don't have any money." "Well, that's why we moved in with Mom. She'll help." Kira realized he had no intention of making an effort. He would simply shift the burden onto his mother and onto her if possible. She decided to act. On December 30th, Kira woke up at 6 in the morning. She packed her last few belongings into a bag and called a taxi for midnight, right after the clock struck 12. The entire day passed in a blur. Jana Borisovna fussed in the kitchen, preparing Olivier salad and slicing sausage. Artem lounged on the sofa, watching some show. Kira sat in her room, sorting through documents. 2 envelopes. The first contained the application for divorce, which she would file with the registry office on January 2nd. The second was a printout of the EGRP extract for the apartment, confirming that Artem was the owner, meaning he could evict Jana Borisovna if he chose. At 11 in the evening, they sat down at the table. Jana Borisovna poured champagne, Artem picked at the salad, and Kira remained silent. The clock showed 5 minutes to midnight. Jana Borisovna turned on the television. The broadcast from Red Square began. Kira took out the envelopes. The clock struck 12. Kira stood up. "Happy New Year, Jana Borisovna." Her mother-in-law turned, raising an eyebrow in surprise. "And to you, dear. Here is my gift to both of you." Kira placed both envelopes on the table. "The divorce papers and an extract from Rosriester, so that you, Jana Borisovna, know whose apartment this actually is." Jana Borisovna snatched the first envelope, opened it, and scanned its contents. Her face contorted. "Are you out of your mind?" Artem unfolded the second page, the EGRP extract. He read it. His face paled. "What is this?" "This is a document confirming that the apartment is yours, which means you can evict your mother from it. I just wanted you to know, just in case." Jana Borisovna jumped up. "Artem, say something to her." But Artem remained silent. He stared at the extract, confusion in his eyes. "Kira, wait, let's talk," he began, but she was already putting on her jacket. "Nothing to discuss. The taxi is waiting." "You can't just leave," Jana Borisovna shrieked. "You're on my territory. I won't allow it." Kira turned and met her gaze. "On your territory, Jana Borisovna. Read the documents. You are merely registered here. If Artem wishes, he can have you deregistered through the court. So, perhaps you should have been a bit kinder to your daughters-in-law? Happy New Year." She walked out the door without looking back. The elevator arrived quickly. A taxi waited downstairs. The driver helped her load her bags. Kira settled into the back seat and finally exhaled. "Where to?" the driver asked. She stated the address. New studio, new life. On the way, she received a message from Artem. "Kira, do you really want a divorce? Let's discuss everything. I'm willing to change." She didn't reply, simply blocked his number. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. Kira filed through the registry office by mutual consent. Artem eventually signed. Another month later, she received her divorce certificate and, that same day, met a friend at a cafe. They had coffee, and her friend asked, "So, how are you? Any regrets?" Kira shook her head. "Not for a second. And what about them? Have you heard anything?" Clara Mikhailovna mentioned. After that New Year's Eve, Jana Borisovna had a huge argument with Artem, demanding he take me back. When she realized I was already gone, she turned on him, said it was all his fault that he hadn't kept me. Then it suddenly turned out that the apartment was his. She was in shock. She thought she was the owner, but it turned out to be her son. Now she tiptoes around, afraid he'll actually evict her. And he's doing nothing. Staying home, looking for work, or pretending to. Jana Borisovna now dotes on him, cooks for him, cleans, doesn't dare to utter a word, afraid she'll lose her roof over her head. Her friend snorted. Justice has triumphed. Yes, only it's not my doing. They brought it upon themselves. Kira encountered Artem by chance, 6 months after the divorce in a shopping mall. He was walking with bags, gaunt, wearing an old jacket. He saw her and looked flustered. Kira stopped. "Hi?" "Hi." He lowered his eyes. "How are you?" "Good. And you?" "Okay. I found a job in logistics. The salary's not great, though." "I see." A pause. Artem shuffled his feet. "Kira, I wanted to say, I'm sorry, really. I understand now. It's late, of course, but I understand." Kira looked at him and suddenly realized she felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just emptiness. "All right, it happens. Good luck." She walked on, not looking back. In the summer, Kira met a new man, a programmer who rented an apartment nearby. They bumped into each other at a coffee shop where they both enjoyed their morning cappuccinos. They struck up a conversation, exchanged numbers, met again, and then again. No vows, no promises. Just two adults who found each other interesting. One day, he asked, "Were you married?" Briefly. "Want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "Not really. It's in the past." He nodded, understanding, and didn't press. She liked that. Her grandmother passed away at the end of October, peacefully in her sleep. Kira attended the funeral and wept uncontrollably. It was her grandmother who had gifted her freedom. It was she who believed her granddaughter deserved more. After the funeral, Kira returned to the city and for the first time in many months felt exhausted. Tired of being strong, tired of proving herself, tired of starting over. But then she remembered that New Year's Eve, Zhana Borisovna's face when she opened the envelope, Artem's face when he realized she wasn't joking, and how she had walked out of that apartment without looking back. Kira took out her phone and texted her friend, "Let's meet tonight. I want to drink to things finally being resolved." Her friend replied immediately, "Of course, I'm proud of you." Kira smiled and thought, yes, she's proud of herself too. 6 months later, she sold her grandmother's house for 3 million rubles. This was enough for a down payment on a one-bedroom apartment in a new building. Her own, completely her own. Friends came to the housewarming. The programmer also arrived with a bouquet and a bottle of wine. They sat on the floor with minimal furniture yet, laughing, drinking, making plans. Towards morning, when the guests had left, Kira lay down on the new sofa. Tomorrow she would hang the curtains, the day after, buy a table. Small steps, but moving forward. And before sleeping, she recalled Zhana Borisovna shouting after her, "You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back on your knees." Kira smirked in the darkness. No, she wouldn't.